Good morning, everyone, and welcome to my podcast. My name is Lynette. Today we're going to talk about how to stay positive in difficult times. And I want to talk to you about when you have made that decision, you want to look at things from a more positive angle and want your life to be filled with more positivity. The question is, what do you do when you're surrounded by either difficult times or negative people? We have friends that we don't necessarily want to get rid of course, but they're always in a negative mode. I'm going to give you two examples right off the bat, and one is when I was younger, my mother decided she wanted to be positive, and she was doing this book called 7-Day Mental Diet, where you don't see anything negative for 7 days. So my sisters and I were arguing, and my mother, trying to keep positive, put herself in the closet that we kept our laundry basket in. And after a period of time, we're like, where's our mother? And so we started looking around. And we opened the closet door, and she was hiding in there just to get rid of our negativity. So I'm going to try to make it so you don't need to hide in the laundry closet to get away from negativity, because we're surrounded by it. And especially people that don't respect. They may not look at it as a disrespect, but they don't respect that you're trying to put a positive spin on your life. I know I have a friend that I love her to pieces, but she is so negative. And I was making my podcast, and when I do this, I usually do not answer the phone. I want to stay focused, and I want to stay positive. But for some reason, I did answer the phone. As soon as I said hello to her, she started complaining about what her neighbor was doing to her. And then after I hung up, I thought, oh my gosh, I can see the difference. It's like black and white, trying to remain in a positive mode. And then you're around people that are in a negative mode. And it was so clear to me, because when I do these podcasts, of course, I'm trying to stay as positive as possible. And her putting me in that dark space and then trying to bounce back and recover from it, it wasn't easy. And I really learned how much people can drag you down, especially when you're trying to improve yourself and you're trying to look at the world through a positive lens. I've actually heard somebody sum up the idea of why certain people do think and speak negatively. And they said it goes back to the caveman days, where you have to look at everything as a threat, and therefore you're ready for anything that comes to you. I'm not sure if I believe that. That sounds like a bit of a negative from the beginning. I believe positivity is a mindset. You have to make a conscious effort of the way you want to look at things. Some of you already have developed that because you were luckily surrounded by positive people growing up. When you're around people that look at the good in everything, I think you tend to be that way as well. But I also believe in what we think is also a way of manifesting. We've talked about making intention boards, vision boards, and you put what you want your world to look like, usually in the form of pictures on a board, so it's always not only fresh in your head if you're looking at it daily, but it also is going out to the universe, creating the world that you want. I believe the same holds true with the way you think, what you hold in your mind. The pictures you give yourself in your mind is a way of manifesting that outcome. So if you're looking at it in a positive way, in a happy way, and the outcome is good, then that is what you're manifesting, and that's what will transform. But if you're always looking at things in a negative way and you have that picture in your head, I believe the same will hold true. You will get what you're putting out there, what you're putting out into the universe. In other words, in a sense, we create our own world. I'm not undermining God by any means. I know He is a creator of all things, and I know we need to pray to Him and ask Him for the things we want. But I'm talking about the day-to-day 50-50 choices that we have in everything. We can look at it as a negative, or we can look at it as a positive. But the most important thing, to me anyway, if you really stop and think that you are manifesting things from your own thoughts, and when you really think about that, it's serious. It's time to straighten up your thoughts and get them clean so you're manifesting the life that's ahead of you in a happy way. Another interesting theory that I've heard is that our brains don't know the difference between what's true and what's false. And it is interesting because we can feed ourselves absolute truth and victory in things, and that will be the outcome. Taking it a step further, that's what athletes do. It's all part of you have to be not only physically fit, not only mentally fit, but you've got to be in that mode where your whole body is transforming things into a positive. And I believe when you walk in that light, you can't go wrong. You're constantly creating your world. And unfortunately, we are surrounded by situations and people that are the opposite of that, which makes it a little bit harder to remain in that mode. And if people are too toxic, we've talked about needing to keep them at arm's length. But if they are individuals that you still want to be around, just as they're rubbing off on you, you can rub off on them. I personally have told my friend, I'm really trying to stay positive. Really, really, really. And with everything going on, I'm trying to look at it in a positive mode. And she listens to me, but then she falls right back into that negative thing. So I'm not sure if people don't realize how negative they are and where they're coming from and what they sound like. But that's not our issue. The point is that we remain positive. And so how do we do that? And I think part of it is making a decision that we're going to stay in a positive mode, look at everything in a positive way. And therefore, without even intending to, you're going to be an example for negative people. My mother did teach me a lot about positivity growing up, and I don't think it meant a lot to me. But now that I'm older, I truly understand a lot that she said, and it has paid off in certain areas. Don't get me wrong, I still slip back and go into certain modes that I would prefer not to. But the big picture is knowing and understanding the difference that it makes, and that you can create your own path, your own spiritual walk. It's just like when you wake up in the morning, you can whine and cry about things that are going on with you, or you can give gratitude for what's going right with you. And I know I gave you an example in a previous episode about a job that I applied for, and there was 8 other people there. And one girl in particular really made an impact on me because she said, I'm happy all the time. And I said, you are? How do you do that? And she said, I just decided to be happy all the time. Then consequently, I got the job, and I thought about that girl. Well, things were not going well in my personal life. So I quit the job. And I'll bet you this girl who had a positive attitude, I bet you she got it. So when you look at things in a positive way and know if something doesn't happen, that it's to redirect you, or in the case if this girl did get the job, the timing when they hired me wasn't the right timing for her, but it took a little while later and she I think, ultimately got the job, hopefully. So when you believe that the world works in this way, that there are no mistakes, as a human being, you might get disappointed for a little bit, but it certainly is a lot easier to realize that if something doesn't happen, that it was meant to be, it was dodging that particular bullet. And you just have to have faith and trust that it wasn't meant to be. I believe it would be beneficial for everybody to make a vision board. Cut out what you want. The dream job, the car, the this or that. It doesn't have to be exactly what you want, but it's putting an intention out there that you do desire a new car or whatever. And when you put it on this board, it is very interesting because you look at it later and it's amazing how many things have come to pass. So there is a lot to be said for creating your own world, manifesting your own world. And it's really very exciting that we do have that much control of our own lives. I mean, like I said earlier, God keeps his hand over us, and he's the ultimate. And the big picture is, regardless if anybody ever pointed this out to you or told you, we have more control over how we live than we ever thought possible. And it's so exciting. We can literally create our own life. I think part of doing that is taking care of yourself. Of course, eating right, exercise. And the reason I mention those things is because it gives you more mental clarity, more focus. And when you're more focused and you have more clarity, you tend to be more positive. So if you're always looking at things in a negative way, then you're setting yourself up for failure. And the opposite holds true. If you are always looking at things in a positive way and just believing it's going to happen and praying it's going to happen and having that trust, then you're setting yourself up for the life that you want. And again, to be able to help in the manifesting of our own life is so exciting. When you really wrap your head around it, when you really think about how much control we do have. And I believe God lets us have that control. What's really funny, I don't know if you've noticed this, but when you're talking to somebody and you're in a bad mood or a negative mood, they tend to cut the conversation short. But if you're positive, it's almost like they're gaining energy off of you, and therefore you're like a magnet to people. They tend to want to be around you more for a longer period of time because they're feeding off of the good energy that you're giving off, whether they know it or not. Again, I'm going to bounce back to the example of my friend. This girl I'm talking about, when she laughs, it's such an infectious laugh. It draws you in. It's so fun to be around her, and everything becomes so light. But I notice when she gets into a negative mode, I myself say, I gotta go, or I make sure that if I call during a time where we can't be on the phone for a long time for whatever reason. So I do it too to people. We all want to be around positive energy. Took me a long time to notice this, but I realized after a while that some people were calling me when they did have problems because they wanted positive reinforcement, or I guess they thought I would be helpful in telling them what to do. But it got to be where in friendships, it's a balance. It's the good, the bad, the ugly. You talk about their happy moments or sad moments. You're a confidant. You're there for your friend. But one girl in particular I noticed was calling me only when she got in a fight with this particular person and give you nothing back. But for example, one time, this girl called and I just ordered a pizza. I was going to sit down, watch TV and eat pizza and have just a nice lunch. And she complained the whole time. I was eating my pizza. Next thing I know, pizza's gone. And she says, "Oh, I feel much better now." And that was my awakening. What I'm saying is I was channeling my positivity in the wrong way. The big picture is, and the point is, and this goes for all of us, and that is you teach people the right direction and they can take it or leave it. You can set an example. You can certainly, and you should give your information, and especially where God is involved. But in terms of having a more positive spin on things and how it's life-changing, it's not that you need to work out their individual problems, but you're giving them tools and you're learning tools on how to work things out to make your own life happier and healthier. Another way to go from negative to positive is when your mind gives you a negative thought, write it on a piece of paper, and then just under that, write a positive outcome. After you do this so long, it doesn't have to be very long. It was a matter of days. Your mind actually starts to flip to the positive itself. So how exciting that our minds are so capable of being trained and changing. And in doing so, is changing our life. And walking in a positive attitude and manifesting the life that we want. Instead of looking at things in a doom and gloom, be inspired that you have that kind of innate ability to manifest your own life. That is so exciting. Get excited about changing your world, changing your thoughts, looking at things through clear eyes. And on that note, I gotta say, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen this, but because the World Cup is here in the U.S., people have come from all over the world, and they have been making videos after video about how much they're enjoying America, how beautiful it is, how the people are so friendly and so nice and so positive, and what wonderful food we have. And honestly, because they weren't talking doom and gloom, but it was all so positive, it made me, in fact, want to take a road trip. So what it is, it's looking through something with clear eyes, with fresh eyes, with a new perspective. And that's what it is, no matter what's going on in your life. If it's not favorable, then get a new perspective. Get excited about changing it. Get excited about manifesting it to look like the life that you want it to look like. With that being said, I have more to talk to you about, but I think I'm going to make this a 2-part podcast because it is so long, and I think I'm losing my voice. Anyway, with all that being said, if you enjoyed this episode and you want to pass it on to your friends, I would appreciate it if there's somebody that you think it might help. Anyway, thank you for listening. You all have a great week, and I will speak to you next time. Bye-bye.